A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Prime Media Studio and welcome to News at Noon on this channel. My name is Moses and thanks for staying with us. First, the headlines. Will invade Niger if diplomacy fails, says ECOWAS. Falana drags CBN to court over floating of Naira. Emefiele, federal government showing signs of disobeying court orders. Prosecute bandits for raping, killing women and children, UNICEF tells FG. And now, the details. Will invade Niger if diplomacy fails. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, said yesterday in Accra, Ghana, that it will not hesitate to invade Niger Republic if all efforts to reverse the coup in the country fail. This came as the German government said it is in support of sanctions imposed on the military junta in the country by the European Union, EU. It will be recalled that ECOWAS heads of state and government had its second extraordinary summit in Abuja last week, activated its standing force should the junta in Niger refuse to restore power ousted president restore to power ousted president of the country, Mohamed Bazoum. The threat came as defense chiefs of member states met in the Ghanaian capital to strategize on the next line of action on Niger and discuss details of the standby force. The meeting continues today. He criticized the junta's announcement that it had elements to put Bazoum, who is being detained, on trial for treason. The United Nations, European Union, and ECOWAS have all expressed concern over the conditions of his detention. The irony of it is that somebody who is in a hostage situation himself is being charged with treason when he committed that high treason is everybody's guess, Moussa said. Niger has strategic importance beyond West Africa because of its role as a hub for foreign troops involved in the fight against Islamist insurgents in the Sahel region and its uranium and oil reserves. Western countries fear the junta could follow the lead of neighboring Mali, where the military government threw out French troops and instead invited in mercenaries from Russia's Wagner Group, which has welcomed the coup in Niger Republic. Falana drags CBN to court over floating of Naira. Human rights lawyer Femi Falana said the Central Bank of Nigeria has been dragged to court over the floating of Naira currency. Falana disclosed this while speaking in an interview on Channels Television on Friday. Recall that the Apex Bank reportedly told deposit money banks to freely float the Naira against the dollar and other international currencies in June. The policy was announced at a time when the Naira traded between 730 Naira and 755 Naira to the dollar at the investors and exporters window. But Falana described the decision of the CBN to float the Naira as illegal and being challenged in court. He said there's no provision for floating the Naira. It is illegal. You say the value of the Naira will be determined by market forces. That is not there in the law, he said. As of Friday, the CBN puts the exchange rate between 744 and 746 Naira. The senior advocate of Nigeria said the CBN Act made it compulsory for the Apex Bank to fix the exchange rate. He noted that Section 220, subsection 1 of the CBN Act provides that the only legal tender in Nigeria shall be the currency notes issued by the central bank, only the Naira. Section 20, subsection 5 of the Act also provides that anybody who spends any other currency in Nigeria without the approval of the central bank has committed an offense and shall be prosecuted. He explained, adding, the penalty is 6 months imprisonment. Falana argued further that as long as government officials are not prepared to strengthen the Naira and make it the only legal tender in Nigeria, we are not going to go far. On the federal government's approval of 5 billion naira for each state and the Federal Capital Territory to procure food items for distribution to the poor in their respective states, Falana said the measures were diversionary. He said they are temporary measures, some of them are quite diversionary, and people in government have not addressed the root of the crisis, which is the dollarization of the economy, he said. Whatever palliatives that are announced will be eaten up by dollarization of the economy, he added. Federal government showing signs of disobeying court orders, says judge. Abuja Justice Nicholas Onwibu of a federal high court sitting in Lagos yesterday noted that the federal government has shown signs of not being law-abiding and has no respect for the court. The judge made the pronouncement while striking out the firearm possession charge against the suspended governor of the Central Bank in Nigeria, CBN, Mr. Godwin Emefiele. The charge was brought against Emefiele by Department of State Security Services, DSS. Justice Owibu struck out the charge for want of diligent prosecution, noting that the federal government had shown signs of not being law-abiding and had no respect for the court. Meanwhile, the scheduled arraignment of Emefiele on a fresh 20-count charge was yesterday stalled following the absence of one of the defendants in the case. Though Emefiele was brought to court by DSS, who are still holding on to him before an Abuja High Court sitting at Maitama. To enter his plea to the fresh charge against him, the court was told by the DSS that the second defendant, Sidat Yaro, was unavailable. Court strikes out firearms charge. Justice Onwibo, who struck out the charge for want of diligent prosecution following the withdrawal application made by the Director of Public Prosecution of the Ministry of Justice, Mohammed Abubakar. At the last adjourned date, the DPP made an oral application to the court to withdraw the charges against Emefiele. Medical expert cautions against diabetes. Prosecutes bandits for raping, killing women and children, says UNICEF. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF in Nigeria, has asked the federal government to prosecute bandits for their atrocities of murder and rape committed against women and children. The country representative of UNICEF in Nigeria, Christian Mondwait, made the call during a press briefing preparatory to the commemoration of World Humanitarian Day in Maiduguri on Friday. She noted that it was unacceptable that government had not taken drastic actions against those who abducted schools children, killed women and teachers, and raped young girls. She called for a proper strengthening of judicial systems and warned that the barbaric act should stop so that children could go to schools without fear of being kidnapped or raped. She said, "So yes, it is bad. You can read this on a daily basis on the number of attacks on the community and schools. Just a couple of days ago, teachers were attacked and unfortunately they were murdered. This aspect requires immediate action. It is unacceptable that bandits are not taken to court and they have been assaulting, killing children and women, abducting and raping. It scares me. If there's any process, I think there's no proper punishment for these people legally. We have international laws and also a legal system, of course. The country has their national laws and these laws have to be applied, says the representative of UNICEF. And that's the news at noon. Headlines. Subsequent announcements will be brought to you as the day go by. Join us in the next hour for more. My name is Moses and thanks for staying with us. Goodbye.